Ole Miss might be done with the transfer portal for 2022. That probably isn't true, but we will tell you why a slowdown might be coming sooner than you think. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for tuning in on this, I guess this is Tuesday. Good grief, this time's really flying by. Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about the transfer market and what's going on and players that might be going, that might not be coming. We'll explain what we're talking about all that. And in the second segment, we have BetOnline's over-under win totals. They have been released. Also, Ole Miss is a 21.5 point favorite, I think, on BetOnline and 23 points on Circa Sports. So lines are starting to come out. It's pretty close. I actually pre-ordered my Phil Steele magazine today. So we're going to get ready for the summertime when all of this stuff could come together. It should be a lot of fun, but I'm pretty psyched about that. Now, thank you very much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have subscribed to the YouTube channel, tell a friend about it. Also, hit the bell for notifications when a new video is posted, which happens quite frequently. And, of course, upvote the video itself. If we hit 1,000 subscribers, which it really looks like we will by the start of football season, we will do what we're calling Post-Game Live. And Post-Game Live will be a 30-minute post-game show. Over here, you'll see us area over here. This will be a chat module to where you can participate, and it'll be an interactive show. So have a lot of fun with that. If you want to see what it looks like, go to the Y'all's Conference Network YouTube channel on Wednesday at 8:30 Central. And we do a live stream there where we talk about SEC football and in general, and we kind of go off the rails and have a little bit of fun with it. But it's me, some guy from the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast, Corey Burton, Jeb Beecham, Tennessee fan, and Jake Thomas from Tie Talk Live, which they're doing really well. So it's me, a Georgia fan, an Alabama fan, and a Tennessee fan. We're kind of going back and forth. It's a lot of fun. So, but that is the SEC After Dark podcast. If you just search that on YouTube, it will come up and with past episodes. So, the transfer portal. We had a show probably 2 or 3 weeks ago to where we talked about what I thought was happening. Now, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying this pretty coincidental that it's going down like this. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Not necessarily taking a victory lap or anything like that. But I said that it looked like that Deion Smith was the primary, and the secondary would have been Jalen Robinson if something happened with Deion Smith. And if we sign Jalen Robinson, Deion Smith might not come. Well, several sites out there, and it's on Twitter and stuff like that, are reporting now that it looks like Deion Smith will not make it to Ole Miss now, maybe not ever. I think he's going to JUCO. You saw something pop over the weekend that kind of made my antenna go up, which is, pretty important whenever he was been locked into Ole Miss for 6 months and all of a sudden you start hearing stuff about Auburn. That makes me think he's talking to people. He's asking questions. He's trying to find out because his primary didn't quite work. And I was been waiting on that news to come about what happened and if he wasn't coming to Ole Miss and something like that. And sure enough, it showed up. It absolutely showed up. And I think Chuck Rounsaville reported it on 3. I think somebody else did as well. Again, we're not in the news reporting business. We don't really care who breaks a story. We just care about the information that is out there and that you guys are talking about. And right now you're talking about the Deion Smith not potentially be able to make it to campus. Now, this could all flip around and all work out, and it could be a situation where the media are just wrong. I mean, I never take their word at 100% face value anymore. That they haven't earned that. It's just one of those things that's kind of scary with those guys. You never know. It's like, okay, this is happening, but did it come from our local guys? And that is problematic. I mean, it just is. It used to be in 2003, 2004, 2005, back when the staff was honestly feeding the site, their hit rate was like 70 or 80%, some astronomical number. And now it's down to like 20 or 30%. And because of that, I mean, whenever they're right, it's almost like a valedictorian in a summer school type deal. But we'll see if he makes it to campus. It doesn't look like he will. They're reporting that he will not. If they are right, God bless them, do whatever. But that matches what I said 3 weeks ago. That if for some reason Deion Smith couldn't sign with Ole Miss, they would sign Jalen Robinson. Now, the question became, why? Why did you have that opinion? And that was because of initials. And the initial scholarships for each school is going away. But I don't think it's going away in time for fall camp. It might be something where the initials takes effect like August 1st. So there's no last minute stocking your roster up to get ready for football season. Like they'll put a deadline, they'll make that thing to where July 1st is the deadline to be eligible for the next season. Something like that. Because without the initials, there are going to be players getting cut in camp and there's going to be players getting brought in. That's just the way it is. And I think it's important to realize exactly what that means. So I think the NCAA will do something cute like that so they can have essentially a year until the first time it pops up. Because they've learned what drinking from the fire hose and exactly what people will do. So once that is available, I do expect Lane Kiffin to get active in the transfer portal. Whenever he can, I think he will. It might not be a situation to where he can really get active until after this football season. That is fine. But I think 20, 25 players in the transfer portal is a realistic number for the staff and what they do. With 32 initials last year, they completely transformed their roster. Now, again, I've said this many times on this podcast. It is one thing to be talented. It is quite another to be good. They have to figure out how to be good. But this is the most talented program or team that has stepped foot on this campus that was a football team probably since before I was born. Sometime in the early 60s, maybe. And even then, I mean, this may be the most talented players. I think these guys would just wipe the floor with those guys because football has become so sophisticated. But I think they have a chance to be really, really good. And we're going to talk about over-unders in the next segment of the show. And, kind of look at what they can do and where they are going and all of that stuff. So we're going to have over-unders for Ole Miss and other SEC teams. You can see the line below. Ole Miss favored by 21.5 against Troy. That line was released this week. So we're getting there. We are actually getting there. I've pre-ordered, like I said, my Feel Still magazine to where I can look at it and what's going on and kind of deep dive a little bit. So it should be a lot of fun to deal with that. And like I said, we got the over-unders and we have Derek Vandygriff coming up in segment 3 to talk a little bit of Ole Miss baseball. So it's going to be a jam-packed show, and we do thank everybody for tuning in. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all of your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoff, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, and tune in next segment to hear the over-unders that were released by BetOnline. But anyway, BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Audacity app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So, first segment, we talked about the transfer portal and exactly where that was going and how that was looking. And sorry if it's a little bit vague. There's questions that need to be answered about that, especially when the initial scholarship thing is going away. But let's switch gears a little bit to the 2022 season this year and talk about what's going on. We do have some I guess some over-unders on regular season wins. Now, if you look at them over and over here, you got Alabama at 10.5. You got Auburn at 5.5. You got Florida at 6.5. Georgia at 10.5. Kentucky at 7.5. Mississippi State at 6.5. Missouri at 5.5. LSU at 6.5. Ole Miss at 7.5. You've got not listed Tennessee at 7.5. Texas A&M at 8.5. And we will go down here. Vanderbilt Commodores at 2.5 wins. I would probably take the over, believe it or not, on that Vanderbilt thing. The thing that stands out to me, that absolutely stands out to me, is the fact that nobody is projected to be unscathed in the SEC. They think that each of them is going to lose a game. Because if they go 11-1, Georgia and Alabama, they could hit over. The bet is designed on them, their second loss. Will they do that? Will they lose 2 this season? And I think that is pretty interesting. Auburn at 5.5 and Missouri at 5.5 is interesting as well. Auburn has a chance to be a fairly bad team this year, but the transfer portal makes all of that very difficult. If they recruit pretty well in the transfer portal, they have a chance to be a decent team. I mean, all teams do. I mean, you look at what Ole Miss did with their roster transformation. You can do the same thing at Auburn. You can do the same thing everywhere if you just lean into this. Now, a lot of these schools, here's the problem. It's all ego. Just like the person that has the radio show that has a high listenership for one reason, then he goes and has a different listenership, and all of a sudden the listenership has gone away. It's because people pay attention to what you're doing, and how relevant you are is because of what you're doing, not who you are. There's very few people that are who you are people, but it's what have you done for me people, because people are inherently selfish people. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to think about that, but they are. And because of that, the inherent selfishness, they might tend to be over conservative on these rankings because they know that the ego of these fans and these schools and everything, they're going to look at Alabama 10.5 and they're like, man, they haven't gone 10-2 in 10 years. Why would they do that? Georgia's too good to go 10-2. And it feels like it might be a little bit of a sucker bet. You know what I'm saying? To where one of those teams is a trap and the other is, the other way. They're going to go over, but one team is going to be a little bit of a trap. And I'm really interested about that. Auburn's the same way. They're just in the state with Alabama, and they let Alabama existing in that state just eat them up. It is so corrosive over there to where their program is just a tire fire right now, all because Alabama is winning and winning big. And they so desperately want to win like Alabama, but they can't. They fired a coach that was semi-successful at Auburn and had the most wins ever versus Nick Saban. And they hired somebody, and now all of a sudden their projected win total is 5.5. That's their over-under. So if they get 6 wins, if they go 6-6, it's an over bet. It's absolutely crazy. Florida and the game changer coordinator and Chris Doering loves to practice players. They're at 6.5. I mean, I want to see what they look like at quarterback. I think Billy Napier's a heck of a coach. I think that was a good hire. Georgia at 10.5. That honestly feels about right. I think Tennessee or somebody might be able to get them this year. I don't know. Half of that defense went in the first round last year, and there has to be some repercussion for that. Kentucky at 7.5. Mississippi State at 6.5. That's a big over-under number for them. We've done their schedule. They play Kentucky and Georgia from the East this year, plus all their West teams. So this could go terribly wrong for them this season. But it is Mike Leach's third year, and traditionally they make a little bit of a run. Missouri is at 5.5. LSU is at 6.5. Ole Miss is at 7.5. So let's look at 7.5. Ole Miss opens at Troy. Ole Miss should win that game. Then they play Central Arkansas. They should win that game. They play Georgia Tech. They play Tulsa. They should win that game. Play Georgia Tech. They should win that game. That's 4. So they're saying 4-0 in non-conference and 4-4 in the SEC gets them to over, right? So you've got Vanderbilt. That's 5. You got Mississippi State. That's 6. You've got Auburn. That's potentially 7. So what they're saying is get 1 out of LSU, Texas A&M, Alabama, or Arkansas. 1 game. That's all. You get 1 of those, you're in good shape. I think Kentucky's in there as well. So 1 out of those 5 games, and you're probably going to bet the over there. Tennessee at 7.5. That's interesting. They had a fairly decent one. Of course, their $8 million quarterback is due there next year. Should be interesting to see what's going on with them. Texas A&M, if they find quarterback play, they could win, but it's just it's kind of hilarious that their over-under is at 8.5. We make jokes about the last recruiting class, but they've been recruiting 5 stars there for 3 or 4 years, and they still go 8-4. They go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl. So, and the joke is that whoever they duck in the Duke's Mayo Bowl is going to beat the heck out of Rutgers. That's the joke right now. So you got Haynes King, you got Max Johnson, and all that competing for the job, and it should be quite interesting of what's really going on. So, anyway, coming up next, we have Derek Vandygriff talking Ole Miss baseball. We're going to do that for a little bit, and stick around. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including iTunes. Do not forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It doesn't matter what you say. You can say Steve is an idiot. Steve should talk baseball more. I wish Steve talked football more. It doesn't matter. Just leave us a 5-star review. That'll help others find the show on the audio side of the house. Of course, as always, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, if we get to 1,000, we're going to do postgame live during football season. We're about 91% there. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. If you have subscribed, tell a friend. Anyway, I'm here with Derek Vandygriff. We're going to talk a little Ole Miss baseball. We just had 16 minutes of wonderful baseball talk that you will never hear because I messed up. So we're going to try to replicate that as best I can. How you doing, Derek?
Doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing quite well. Anyway, we're going to start here. And after the Texas A&M series, Jim Schlossnagle put out a tweet that called Mike Bianco one of the top 3 program builders in all time of college baseball. And people tried to slam that, and they talked about Omaha. And I don't think people understand what that treat is. He's talking about where Ole Miss has gone for in the beginning when he got here to where they are now. It's about program building. It's that atmosphere at Swayze that we're all so proud of. He built that.
Yeah, he did. He's really done an incredible job since he's taken over. You know, there was not much atmosphere, facilities, or anything with the stadium. You know, when Mike took over here, you know, he's done a great job building fan interest, and obviously the on-field product. You know, kind of helps move that along a little bit, right? You know, whenever you get good baseball, you know, you want to come out there and watch it. And then, you know, everything they did with the outfield, you know, I'm sure you remember it down the third baseline, you know, when they had the hill, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but before they did the expansion there and put seats and all there, you know, you'd have to go get those plastic chairs and saw the back 2 legs off of it so you could sit evenly on it, you know. That back when I was in high school, I always thought that was the coolest thing. You know, I'd spend a fortune on chairs because I'd use one every single game, have to go buy a new one. But, you know, then they expand it, and then they do right field and left field, and then they put the playground out there. And, you know, they've just constantly done stuff to make it a lot more fan-friendly, and then something a little bit more family-friendly out there in left field to bring the kids out there. And, yeah, he's done an incredible job with all the players that's come through, you know, and you can tell he means a lot to them, too. You know, if you ever hear former players talk about him, just how much they have – or how much he has meant to them even after, you know, they've moved on from playing baseball and all. And, you know, he's just done an incredible job there. And, you know, over 22 years, he's done nothing but win. He's the second winningest coach in SEC history, you know, the winningest coach we've ever had. And whenever he decides that his days are done, or whoever decides that his days are done at Ole Miss, they need to go ahead and make plans to get a statue put out there for him, because none of it would exist without Mike Bianco.
Yeah, really, Ole Miss baseball doesn't exist without Mike Bianco. Not in any real form. I mean, he built it all. Anyway, let's go into the SEC tournament today. Ole Miss plays Vanderbilt this afternoon. Dylan DeLucia is going to start. Tell us what we need to know about the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously they're an incredibly talented team. You know, they're 14-16, got an RPI 5 right now. So they played a good schedule, you know, but even though they're 14-16, you know the kind of guys they got out there, right? They're talking about starting either Carter Holton or Bryce Cunningham. Carter Holton was one of their regular weekend stars. I believe he was a Saturday star. Had a pretty good year. He didn't pitch last weekend. They just said he didn't feel right. Now, with Corbin's history, you know, you kind of expect him to maybe hold him out. He's always overly cautious with pitchers. But the fact that he come out and said that it would be one of those two makes you think that he's seriously considering it. He's 7-3 on the year, 3.42 ERA, 193 opponent's batting average. Really good pitcher, 86 strikeouts in 68 innings. And then, you know, you've got Enrique Bradfield Jr., who's an incredible athlete. If y'all have never seen him play, you need to tune in just to see him. He's a big, rangy outfielder. He's super athletic, at 322, 7 home runs, and he's an incredible 42 for 42 on stolen bases on the year. I mean, nobody can throw this kid out. He's an absolute thrill to watch. Hopefully he doesn't get any opportunities to get on base and still against us, but he's a lot of fun to watch. Spencer Jones is an absolute stud out there for him. He's hitting 379, 9 home runs, 48 RBIs. You know when you go into a series or a game with Vanderbilt, you're going to have talent up and down the lineup, and you know you never know what kind of freshman they're going to pull out of the bullpen that's just going to throw 99 that nobody's ever heard of before.
Yeah, and the winner of this game gets Tennessee, so win-win, right?
Yeah, you know, that'll be the Drew McDaniel game for us, hopefully. You know, throw him out there, and then we'll take our chances coming out of the losers bracket after that.
Yeah, I think, did they do run rules in the SEC tournament?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking they do just because of the time constraints and all that, you know. But if we end up getting to Tennessee, though, I mean, because it's really Vanderbilt's only game that matters. I mean, only thing that matters after that is whether or not you're hoisting a trophy up by Sunday, right? But even if we do that, it's not really going to change what we do postseason-wise. You know, we're not in a hosting conversation. We just need to go in tonight and whenever the game takes place. You know, got a bunch of thunderstorms and all supposed to be moving through that area here coming up. But if we can take care of it. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's Hoover. You know, it's like Memphis in May. You know it's going to rain that weekend. Yeah. But, you know, take care of business against Vanderbilt. Go in, solidify your spot in the NCAA tournament, and then pack your bags up, go home, and get ready as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, if Ole Miss wins or loses the game, give us your crystal ball. What do you expect to happen?
I didn't hear you. What's that?
Give us your crystal ball and talk about this game. If they lose the game, if they win the game, tell us what happens next.
All right, well, I mean, if we win, obviously it's a Dylan DeLucia game, right? You know, ones we've seen for the past several weekends if you take the Texas A&M game out of it. You know, you're wanting him to go 7 innings, you know, 2-3 runs, something like that. We can probably work with that. And, you know, the way the bats have been going for us, you know, I think that'll be enough. And then right after that, you bring in Brandon Johnson. You go see if he can go get you 6 outs after that. Now, if we get another dud like we did against A&M from DeLucia, where he only throws 57, 58 pitches and, you know, doesn't get out of the second inning, then, yeah, we're probably in trouble. But, you know, even if something like that does happen, though, you know, you still need to bring in Brandon Johnson and Josh Mallett. I mean, you've still got to throw your arms because this is the key game. I think we're in anyway, but, you know, you want to leave no doubt come next Monday, and the only way to do that is to go ahead and take this game later on today from Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and Ole Miss is in a beneficial position to where they play Vanderbilt at number 5 RPI, and then they get Tennessee. So even if you lose those games, your RPI is going to get better.
Yeah. We're not getting hurt by playing these games, win or lose. Only thing that might hurt is if we lose Vanderbilt and the committee decides to do something weird and leave a 15-win SEC team out of it. And I'm saying 15 because of the Governor's Cup, obviously. I know, you know, if you look at our official record, it's only 14, but that one still counts. So, you know, I'm going to take any win over State I can, and you better believe I'm going to claim it every chance I get or every time I get a chance, I guess I should say.
Yeah, they always talk about in that one. They won the series. It's like, no, we played 4 straight games.
Yeah, we split.
There was not even a break in between. It was 4 straight games.
Yeah. No, we definitely split that series. I don't care what they say.
All right, so get in the committee's head. Play crystal ball. What does this regional situation look like for Ole Miss after the SEC tournament?
After the tournament, I would say we're probably going to either Southern Miss or Louisville. Obviously, a lot of drama built if we end up going up to Louisville, and get the Mike Bianco, Dan McDonald showdown. That would be a lot of fun. Southern Miss right now is a host. They're going to be scrapping and clawing this week to try to hold off LSU. LSU has a good opportunity. They're going to get either Auburn or Kentucky. If they end up getting Auburn, that's a top 10 RPI. And if they beat them, then more than likely they get the number 1 RPI team in Tennessee. And if you're able to string a couple wins together there with those RPI boosts, that might end up putting them into that 16th hosting spot. But, however it ends up working out, the big thing for us right now is we need to beat Vanderbilt. And then with, say, the Conference USA with Southern Miss and all that, we need to watch those tournaments too and make sure that the favorites end up winning it. We don't need some team sneaking up and taking an at-large bid from us right now. You need the Southern Misses of the world to go ahead and run through their tournament, win it. That way there's no surprises and they're not stealing spots from us. That's the key right now this week.
Yeah, I think if LSU and Southern host, we're going to Hattiesburg. If LSU doesn't host, there's a chance they could go to Hattiesburg and we, like you said, go to Louisville. Or they could do like they did the softball team and just send us out to California to play a bunch of regional teams.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're projecting right now, sending us out to Stanford to play 3 California teams, But, it's as long as we get in, I don't really care where we go. If I had my preferences, I think I would rather us go to Louisville, just like I said, for all the drama and everything that goes into it. I'd love for Mike to go up there and get his first road regional win against Dan McDonald in Louisville, just from, everything people say over the last few years, wanting to get rid of Mike and bring in Dan. I would just have too good of a time with that. But I do agree, if Southern ends up getting a host and LSU gets a host too, then they're probably going to send us down to Hattiesburg. And if not, then we'll probably be in Louisville. That would be my guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen today. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. Raphael Barlow, Richard Strayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin give fans an in-depth look at the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and, of course, big boards. Follow the Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Audacity app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Derek, thank you so much for coming back on this. People will never know the beauty of the 16-minute video we just shot, but they'll have to make do with this one.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man.
All right. You have yourself a good day, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bud. Hi, Toddy.
Howdy, Toddy.